Hi, I'm Jeff Klineman. Welcome to our roundup of developments from the Natural Products Expo West show. I'm here with NOSH.com editor Carol Ortenberg. She spent the past 4 days pretty much haranguing everyone who's taking part in the changes encompassing the food industry. Carol, how'd you like the show?
The show was great, as always. It's wonderful to see so many faces that you know in the industry, as well as connect with new brands and make sure we're covering them on NOSH as well. But it does keep getting bigger every year and harder to make it through the entire show.
Certainly there was a lot of talk about hemp and the cannabinoid derivative CBD at the show, but we're not going to talk about that just yet. We want to talk about another plant-based development, and that's in the growing field of plant-based dairy, specifically yogurt. There's a big gap between what people assume is going to be a huge segment of the yogurt business and what's already turned into a nice slice of the dairy business overall. We see plant-based milks at about 15% of the category now, whereas plant-based yogurts are still lodged between 2 and 3%. So what were people saying about that?
Well, I think for a while, plant-based yogurt has still been seen as a special diet product. It hasn't yet crossed over into the mainstream consumer shopping cart, but a lot of mainstream entrants have entered the space. So you have Chobani launching new plant-based yogurt, Danone. The main issue is taste, and that's really what it comes down to. Can someone make a plant-based yogurt that tastes as good and has as much protein and doesn't have a ton of sugar as their dairy alternatives?
So what's another part of the dairy category where we might see plant-based begin to get an edge?
There are some sleepier sections like sour cream that really haven't seen a lot of innovation to begin with. And Good Karma released a plant-based sour cream at the show. There's also a lot of innovation right now in plant-based cheese. And I think that's kind of a good angle because to some consumers, cheese is indulgent. So switching to a plant-based variety, even if you're not trying to avoid dairy, makes you feel a little better for you. Wild Brine released their plant-based brie and butter. Milkademia had a plant-based butter as well. All very indulgent products in dairy. And I think that their analogs in plant-based were a lot closer to the originals as well.
So let's talk about another plant-based area that's a little more solid, and that's plant-based meats. Now, we saw huge lines for burgers at Impossible Foods and Beyond Meat. What I'm trying to figure out is how these companies, which are relatively new, fit in the larger spectrum of plant-based protein makers.
Yeah, it was funny. Someone said to me, is this the line for Space Mountain or a burger? And it was totally true. It was packed at every booth. Now, part of that is that these companies are also a new wave of companies that are really emphasizing social media and getting themselves out there into the media. So there's a lot of hype around these products as well. They're also just making promises that people haven't seen delivered on before. And I think a lot of folks were excited to try them and see if they delivered on those taste and flavor attributes that they had been talking about.
How are they doing compared to, say, a Tofurkey or Morningstar Farms?
Well, Tofurkey has really stepped up their own game in their branding, in their product development to try to be a more modern and contemporary brand. But Morningstar Farms is still dominating the space. I think they have a pretty strong food service division, and they have a lot of that space on shelf already. That's a big part of this battle. A lot of these brands were showing these plant-based burgers in the meat set. That's a hard set to get into. You're competing against high margin items that turn quickly, and if you don't move, you're going to get taken out. My question is, how much room do the meat departments of Whole Foods and Kroger have for plant-based burgers?
So for many of these brands, the issue remains distribution, and there's also this question of, are they an incremental step towards something like a lab-grown meat rather than a plant-based alternative to meat. So we see a lot of steps along the path, but it's great to see so many brands that have this core idea that they want to reduce meat consumption and affect the environment in a positive sense. All right, Carol, we talked about plant-based yogurt, we talked about plant-based meats. Now let's talk about the Farm Bill and another plant that's been unleashed on the natural foods category, which is, of course, hemp. Carol, I wanted to ask you, we saw a lot of CBD-infused drinks at the show, beyond something like a Weller, which already had a coconut-based snack. Did you find a lot of food companies looking to incorporate it?
Definitely some CBD gummies. I think Charlotte's Web released their CBD gummies at the show. Also a little bit into that performance space. So companies that were making protein bites like Siren Snacks have a CBD bite as well. Kind of crosses over a little bit in that, think about protein and performance. Okay, now how do you focus or unwind, keeping along that stream of thought?
A lot of that ties into athletic performance as well. There are a lot of, distance runners looking at CBD as a way of fighting soreness even while they're performing, and certainly Siren Snacks and MCT products are really associated with human performance and athletic performance. So that may be a way that they're trying to back it into their categories.
And then right before the show, we also saw Manitoba Harvest acquired by Tilray. They were at the show with some new products. I think how that relationship develops and how that allows Manitoba Harvest, which frankly has been producing hemp products for years and years, to scale even further will be interesting to see how it rolls out.
One thing that I also found interesting was that there's this sort of echo boom around CBD as a functional ingredient. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit. One thing that I noticed is all of a sudden it's okay to have all these herbal ingredients on the front of your package again. And it's almost as if it breathed new life into things like ashwagandha and reishi and some of the other herbs. Even L-theanine was starting to get up there in combination with CBD. So there's almost this kind of new age resurgence and synergy with this ingredient that they seem to all have been waiting for.
I agree. I think what's going to be interesting, though, is to see how consumers react to it once they start eating these products. Compliance is a big part of these products. You need to take them every day to really see an impact. And sometimes that impact isn't visual. It doesn't help you lose weight or look better, but it makes you feel better. And that's such a subjective thing. A lot of these products are priced at a premium level. So will consumers keep eating them, keep buying them if the impact isn't totally apparent?
Absolutely. It all comes down to both efficacy and consistency. And as we know with CBD, it's also the ability of these companies to source it effectively and create an extract that's going to work at the levels prescribed. Still, it's a fascinating new part of the business. Carol, shifting gears from the immediate trend to a development that's a little bit more mature within the food industry, the ketogenic diet remains a really big influence on food manufacturers and on the retailers and the way they stock their shelves. It's supposed to be about a $5 billion industry, but we saw some changes in the product types that are really geared toward ketogenic consumers now. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I felt like I saw a little less ketogenic junk food and more brands emphasizing that they fit into a ketogenic lifestyle. So talking about healthy fats and that fat can be good for you, low carb, low sugar. So more about the lifestyle than the specific diet itself. That said, there were still plenty of keto bars, and perhaps that speaks to that convenience meal on a go nature that consumers are looking for.
One thing that I thought was interesting also coming from the beverage side is a lot of products are kind of laid out there as fitting in with the ketogenic diet. So we continue to see, for example, the growth of sparkling water, the growth of zero sugar products like Zevia, and the use of stevia in products like Reed's, which really rolled out a lot more of its zero sugar lines. I had one investment banker say to me that he's convinced that sugar is the root of all evil and inflammation. Now, we're not as devout in our commitment to fitness as this fellow, but he's certainly showing where the pin is for consumers.
Well, Jeff, we've got keto, we've got CBD, we've got plant-based. I think we hit a lot of the highlights of Expo West, and now it's time for us to get back to the newsroom and start covering these developments.
You're right, Carol. There's going to be a lot of developments, a lot of news, and it's going to convert into investment and changes at retail, changes in personnel, all kinds of stories, and we're looking forward to continuing to cover them at NOSH and BevNET and Brewbound and on Taste Radio. So have a great day, and we'll see you soon.